we developed the balanced play pyramid, and we use the analogy of a balanced diet. So you don't give your children fatty, salty, sugary food for their as their main meal. That's the sweets and the treats, and that's something that you limit. In the same way that you've got, kids are encouraged to eat as many vegetables and fruit and the healthy stuff as they can. So the superfoods, if you like, of the play diet are the active, imaginative, social, child-led play, often outdoors, where children are they're developing so many skills, confidence and decision making and problem solving and risk taking, risk management, all of those, communication, all of that sort of really good stuff that is so helpful for their development. And then you've got the solitary, sedentary, passive play, which is often screen based, which is the sweets and the treats. And it's not awful, but you want to limit and make sure that children have lots of the good stuff and limit that. So that was the kind of the ethos behind the model. And then we've got two other sides to the pyramid, the where they're playing and who they're playing with. So again, you get very different results or different benefits from playing with older siblings than you do from playing on your own. And they're both important, but you want to mix it up. And the idea is that giving children a really healthy mix of play activities gives them the opportunity to play to their strengths, develop the skills they're good at, help them overcome things that they find challenging, and really just help them thrive.
So, if you are a parent or an educator who has ever wondered, is there any value in play? What is play all about? Why should I play? Have I got an amazing guest for you today? We have Dr. Amanda Gummer, who is the go-to lady in the United Kingdom for all things play. She has founded the Good Play Guide, and she also is a proponent and creator of the Play Diet. And I cannot wait to share with you all of the amazing things that this incredible woman is doing. Dr. Gummer, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So I have to ask, how do you become the go-to woman for all things play?
So it's an interesting title because it's not one I ever gave myself. So I think it's just something that I've been around play for over 20 years, and I help toy companies or children's brands understand kids and play. And I think that their PR agencies over the years have just elevated me to the go-to person, which is flattering and nice. But yeah, I don't know quite where it started from, but I've been doing research into toys, play, and child development for over 20 years now. So I guess I've learned a few things.
So what got you started in play in the first place? Why play?
So I was very lucky to grow up in a very playful household. My mum took a Mary Poppins approach to stuff and made the jobs a game so that we didn't know that we were actually doing jobs. My grandparents were always up for a game or two when they came round, and they came around a lot. My dad used to sell toys. So I spent my teenage years demonstrating toys at toy fairs or dressing up as a bunny or something for a shop launch or something. I was very much in the world of toys, but it was never something that was in my career plans. I sort of fell into it. I did psychology at university, and then I went back and did a PhD. But I think everything that I was doing just kept bringing me back to play, whether it was volunteering in a women's refuge where the kids were struggling and they needed something to help them focus. So I developed a play-based learning program for them, or I grew up with foster brothers and sisters, and mum and dad would sort of make sure that when they were coming in and they'd gone through trauma, play was a big part of how we engaged with them. And then when I graduated, I was running a charity in London for families at risk of breakdown. And again, the families weren't at risk of breakdown for any really horrible reasons. They were just struggling to cope. And being able to play with the children and teach the parents how to play with their own children, and how that opens up communication. It just sort of, everything has been leading me back to the power of play. And it is, in my view, it is the silver bullet. And I think if the world played a bit more, and if some of the leaders in the world had played a bit more as kids, I think maybe the world would be in a slightly better place.
I tend to agree with you on that. And I know when I met you, it was at the Play Conference in Indiana, and you did an amazing presentation about the play diet and the importance of play. I'm wondering if for our listeners, you could give them sort of a sense of why play is important and what we need to be doing to encourage children to play.
Of course, yeah. So play is how kids make sense of the world. It's how they learn. It's how they learn about themselves. It's how they learn about the world around them. It's how they learn how to interact with other people. So play is the work of the child. I absolutely believe that. And the balanced play pyramid is a model that we created that allows children to play in different ways, or it shows the benefit of letting children play in different ways, because it's very different playing a board game with a grown-up than it is building a den with your mates in the garden. You have different types of play. Screen-based play is different from physical play. Goal-oriented games where you're trying to win or achieve something is different from open-ended play. So there's all these different types of play, and trying to make sense of that, what's good, what's not, how you work it, was something I was getting asked about a lot. So we developed the balanced play pyramid, and we use the analogy of a balanced diet. So you don't give your children fatty, salty, sugary food as their main meal. That's the sweets and the treats, and that's something that you limit. In the same way that you've got, kids are encouraged to eat as many vegetables and fruit and the healthy stuff as they can. So the superfoods, if you like, of the play diet are the active, imaginative, social, child-led play, often outdoors, where children they're developing so many skills, confidence and decision making and problem solving and risk taking, risk management, all of those, communication, all of that sort of really good stuff that is so helpful for their development. And then you've got the solitary, sedentary, passive play, which is often screen-based, which is the sweets and the treats. And it's not awful, but you want to limit and make sure that children have lots of the good stuff and limit that. So that was the kind of the ethos behind the model. And then we've got two other sides to the pyramid, the where they're playing and who they're playing with. So again, you get very different results or different benefits from playing with older siblings than you do from playing on your own. And they're both important, but you want to mix it up. And the idea is that giving children a really healthy mix of play activities gives them the opportunity to play to their strengths, develop the skills they're good at, help them overcome things that they find challenging, and really just help them thrive.
And I know that we had talked briefly about there's a lag that's currently happening post-COVID, where kids maybe don't have executive function that they had come into school having before, that they're struggling in terms of anxiety and making friends and being part of a group. How do we address that, and how do we bring play into the early years to really target that?
Yeah, so I absolutely, I think play is a key tool in addressing that issue, and that's been noted here in the UK as well as in the US. So it is an important issue, and social development or level of social development when you start school is correlated with exam results 12 years later. So it's really important that those social skills are prioritized in the preschool years. And one of the things I think has happened is that parents have spent so much time with their children during lockdown. They're used to being there and in their life, and actually children need to be able to play with minimal supervision, because that's when they learn skills like conflict resolution or empathy or communication. And I mean, my two girls are only 18 months apart, 16 months apart now. And if I was there, they were arguing, and it's, Mum, she's taken this off me. Mum, she's not letting me do this. And I'm expected to fix it. So you do, because you're just in the middle of it, and it's quicker and easier for you to fix it than it is for you to let them do it yourself. If I was in the kitchen and I could hear them arguing, if I let them try and deal with it, by the time I'd finished cooking the dinner and gone in to see what actually the problem was, they'd probably resolved it. And there they've learned how to compromise, how to negotiate, how to understand the other person's point of view, how to share, how to take turns. Those skills absolutely vital as you go into school, because there's only one teacher and there's a lot of kids in the class. So if you can't interact and learn from each other, your opportunity for learning from the teacher is 1/30th or whatever it is. Whereas if you can learn from your peers and you can share and collaborate and work together with your peers, you're going to be able to access learning a lot more effectively.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I was thinking also about the idea of risky play, giving children a chance to fall down, to make mistakes. My own girls are now 24 and 21, but we had a time and place where we happened to be living at a prep school. So we were very fortunate in that we had the old farmhouse on the edge, and the girls had free reign over running around in the wild, basically. And so I'd send them out with a walkie-talkie and say, come back in a couple of hours. And they got to play in ways that I don't think children today are getting to play. That freedom, that independence, the ability to step away from the helicopter a little bit and make those mistakes. How can we encourage, or as a society, start looking at ways to allow children to safely take risks?
So we need to make communities that are safe for a start. So we need to stop prioritizing the car quite so much and make sure that children can go out safely and play outside with their friends in safe spaces. We need to make sure that we are giving children those opportunities. I think part of it is education for parents as well, because there is now a fear that parents don't want to let their kids play out because they'll be criticized as a bad parent. And actually, if it's not just about keeping the kids safe, it's about what you're depriving them of in the process. So it needs to be a balancing act. Yes, of course you want to keep your kids safe, but you don't want to keep them so mollycoddled that they don't develop important skills that they need to keep themselves safe when they're older.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So when you're working with parents, I know you've got a lot of resources with the Good Play Guide. What would be some things that you would recommend for them in terms of getting them to take that deep breath and be able to release their child to play?
So I think parents should feel that they can be playful too, because kids learn by copying. So releasing that inner child in yourself and just getting down and being silly with your kids, really good for everybody. Then I think it's about inviting other kids into the mix so that you can take a step back, so you're not feeling like you're your child's entertainer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think that's really important too. So giving your child the space to play without you, whether it's in a different room, whether it's they going outside and you're staying inside, and do it gently. Let the kids earn their freedom and earn your trust, prove that they can be sensible about it. But giving children that sort of, just letting them be a bit more independent, take those risks, be that child that we all got to be when we were younger. I think it's so important.
What led to the change? I mean, I remember being a child and having that freedom, maybe more freedom than I needed. But I remember being able to roam the neighborhood with friends and take my sister around with me. And it feels like something has changed dramatically in the last 30 years.
Yeah, so I think there was a few things. I mean, I think it's a combination of things. There is definitely more traffic, and cars are made safer for the driver, not for the pedestrians. So there is a legitimate fear of letting kids outside where there's traffic. So that's one thing. There were some in the UK. There were some high profile playground tragedies, and that led to a massive over safetification of everything. And I think that's put fear into parents. I think there was some, there's kidnappings or something that hit the media around that time as well. And I think everybody was, and it was maybe just at the advent of the kind of the digital toys, the Nintendo game console and everything. So there was another alternative that maybe to parents felt safer. So kids were happy to play with this, whereas when we were kids, there was nothing to do inside. So you wanted to go outside and play with your friends. Whereas now there's a whole online world that the kids are happy to be immersed in. So the parents are like, well, I feel more comfortable and confident letting them there because I know that they're in their bedroom and they're safe. I mean, I think there's a whole education piece that's needed around the online dangers that kids are experiencing. But I think in a parent's mind, it's like, well, it's safer for them to be at home playing games online than it is for them to be down the park with their friends. And so I think, I think it was a bit of a perfect storm in the 90s and early 2000s. And I think we're paying the price for it now.
I would tend to agree with you. And so I'm trying to figure out, where do we go from here? What do we do as not just as parents, but as educators as well? Because I think that the two go hand in hand, and educators can support the families.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think helping for educators to help parents understand the power of play is incredibly important. I think for schools to be more play oriented for as long as possible, and that's as long as possible at sort of for the age of the child, but also in the school day. What can they put on before and after school that helps kids just be able to play and do all of that and prioritize that. I think it goes further than just educators as well. I think it needs to go to policymakers and government and planners and architects and developers, because we need to put kids at the center of our communities, and we need to be developing safe playgrounds and play spaces for kids to be able to do what we did when we were kids. And they need to be able to get there. They need to be able to be safe when they're there. They need to be able to be within shouting distance of their back door, or all of those kind of things that I think it's going to take a whole society's effort to turn the tanker around.
So it's a systemic change that we need to be making.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
And if we can prioritize play, we're going to have happier people too, just across the board.
Absolutely. And also it's economically makes sense as well. If you look at Heckman's economic model, investing in early childhood pays dividends throughout the course of life in things like education output, youth justice, welfare payments, health and social care, all of those things. The budgets are less put upon if we stay healthy and active and playful.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So we need to get our politicians playing and get them seeing as well the value of early childhood and of play.
Absolutely.
So I kind of want to ask you just quickly, as we're looking at the different kinds of play, it's not like we're asking people to do one more thing. It shouldn't be a burdensome feeling. It should be joyful and playful. Can you offer a couple of just examples of what play would look like? Some things you could do that would be fun and not going out and spending lots of money and not having to, give up your day job to play with your child. Because I think we both are in agreement. You don't need to be the 24/7 entertainer of your kid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's about bringing play into everyday life. And it worries me when I see people who are really busy and they're like, we have an hour between 6 and 7 in the evening where that's our playtime, that's our quality time with our kids, and that's where we play. But well, play should just be an ethos. And whether you're sorting the laundry and getting your toddler to play matching socks, or you've got a 4-year-old that you ball the socks up and play catch with while you're doing those kind of things, or you get them helping with the dinner and they make funny faces with the vegetables, that it's just bringing those sort of playful things into everyday life. And then it's about just being out and about and being playful, noticing playful things, and making funny faces, or seeing what you can create out of the sticks and the leaves that you pick up on your walk, or just bringing that playful approach into everyday life, rather than it being something that gets put on your to-do list and is not something else that as a parent you're like, oh, got to do that, and then you feel bad about it if you haven't done it as well as you'd hoped you would. So I think it's a mindset shift rather than a to-do list item.
I like that. And I think it's giving ourselves permission to be playful as well, that we don't have to be in our buttoned up, grown up clothes all the time, that we can approach the world from a playful vantage point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really good for mental health as well, because in this world of increased anxiety and that perfectionism, children have a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect because they see their parents as perfect often. And play means that you can bring a bit of that slapstick humor in, you can make mistakes, you can be silly, and it can be okay. So you're giving yourself and kids permission to just roll with it, go with the flow, adapt to mistakes. You're developing a load of skills there that really do help build resilience.
I love that. And how do you play?
So I love playing in water. So I like swimming and splashing around and jumping in waves. So water is my happy place. But I am rarely without a pack of cards somewhere. So that if I'm, my parents will always still play a game of cards or a game of backgammon or anything like that. And I think if I was on a desert island, I would have a ball and a pack of cards and I would not be bored.
I love that. And, there's nothing wrong with being bored because honestly, out of boredom, I think comes that imagination and that creative play. And by boredom, I mean, not having somebody structuring everything for you 24/7 or feeling like you have to entertain. I remember that was a huge part of play in my childhood was my mom was doing stuff. And so I made up stories. I was a kid who loved books. And so I directed the neighborhood kids playing Little Women or Star Wars or whatever happened to be the book or the movie I was obsessed with at the time. And that was imaginative, creative play. And there were so many things we had to negotiate within that. Who's playing what role? What are you going to say? How are we going to interact with each other? Can we go with it when suddenly the little sister decides that Star Wars is going to become the Three Bears?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all really good. And if again from the sort of the psychological side of things, Howard Gardner created or identified multiple intelligences, and one of them is intrapersonal intelligence, which is how you know yourself. And if you are always being told what to do because it's scheduled and somebody else is telling you what we're going to play and how we're going to do things, you never get the chance to figure out what you like and what you're good at and how you feel about things. So that knowing yourself by being allowed to get bored and allowed to be, okay, I've got a puzzle over here, I've got a ball over here, which one do I feel like playing with and what am I going to do with it? That's decision making. That's a really important skill too. So it's absolutely imperative that kids are not overscheduled and that they have that freedom to learn what makes them tick.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So if you had a wish list for how we would change play in the coming year, how would you, what would be like the top 3 things you would want to see happen?
Community play spaces within shouting distance of everybody's back door would be my number one. A refocus away from academic achievement onto well-being and mental health, because children who are stressed and anxious and depressed and worried aren't in a position to learn. So I think we need to put the mental health and building those resilient skills at the heart of what we do with kids. And I would like parents to just be able to enjoy family life a bit more and have that and enjoy the fun that they can have by playing with their kids.
I love that. And then what brings you hope as you look at the playscape today?
There is a lot of really good people doing some really good work in this area, and it is starting to register on decision makers' agendas. I think we're starting to make enough, whether it's stuff going on at the Brookings Institute, things like the Play conference that we met at. There's stuff going in the UK Play Commission that's being set up. There's lots of good things, and everybody seems to be saying the same thing. So if we're all saying it loudly enough, we will make enough noise to make some change happen. And that brings me hope.
I love that. And then if people would like to follow you, would like to access your resources, where did they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn as Amanda Gummer. I am on, we're on social as @Good Play Guide on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. And there's the website, which is goodplayguide.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for coming and joining us on the Adventures in Learning podcast today. It has been so much fun talking all things play with you, and I hope that everybody goes out and plays today.
So do I. Thank you so much for having me.